In August 2023, an emaciated young boy showed up on a couple's doorstep in Evans, Utah, seeking help for himself and his siblings. He had duct tape around his ankles and open wounds on his extremities that had been slathered in honey and cayenne pepper, and his appearance was so heartbreaking that the man who dialed 911 broke down in tears while talking to the dispatcher. The boy had escaped from the nearby home of his mother's best friend and business partner, Jody Hildebrandt, where the two women had subjected him and his siblings to torturous abuse. Evans police searched Hildebrandt's home, where they found the boy's terrified little sister inside a closet. She was so scared of the cops that she refused to leave the closet for 4 hours. Meanwhile, law enforcement in other parts of the state searched additional properties connected to the children's mother, Ruby Franke, and found 2 more of her kids. Franke had gained internet fame several years earlier for documenting her family's lives on her YouTube channel, 8 Passengers, which had 2.5 million subscribers at its peak. At the time, Franke was a married mother of 6 who led a seemingly picture-perfect life. But she began to garner criticism for her heavy-handed parenting methods, like withholding food from her children, making her son sleep on a beanbag chair for months, and threatening to destroy her daughter's favorite stuffed animal. Viewers began to accuse Franke of abusing her kids, triggering the end of the 8 Passengers channel. In an attempt to rebrand her image, Franke later collaborated with Hildebrandt, who ran a life coaching business called Connections. The women created controversial content, espousing arguably prejudiced views and encouraging the same type of hard-lined parenting that Franke had been criticized for promoting on YouTube. After the kids were rescued, Hildebrandt and Franke were charged with multiple felonies. In late 2023, they each pleaded guilty to 4 counts of aggravated child abuse and were sentenced to 4 to 60 years in prison. Franke's 4 underage children were placed in foster care, and her ex-husband, who was never charged with any crimes, is reportedly fighting to regain custody. Number 34. Alan Glover. During the early stages of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, the Netflix series Tiger King helped housebound viewers pass the time by offering a glimpse into the life of the eccentric and controversial Oklahoma-based zookeeper Joe Maldonado Passage, also known as Joe Exotic. The show focused largely on Exotic's long-standing feud with rival big cat enthusiast Carole Baskin, who made an enemy out of the Tiger King by protesting his traveling tiger cub petting shows. This caused Exotic to start losing money, prompting him to launch an all-out smear campaign against Baskin. The rivalry escalated after Baskin won a $1 million lawsuit judgment against Exotic in 2013 for damage to her reputation. 7 years later, in 2020, Exotic was sentenced to 22 years in federal prison for unsuccessfully trying to pay 2 men to kill Baskin. One of the alleged hitmen was Exotic's former handyman, Alan Glover, who later testified that Exotic had paid him $3,000 for the intended hit job. Exotic denied this, claiming that he had given Glover the money to help him move on from his job at Exotic's beleaguered Greater Wynwood Exotic Animal Park. Meanwhile, Glover claimed that he and another one of Exotic's rival big cat enthusiasts, Jeff Lowe, had concocted a plot to kill the Tiger King himself. During Tiger King's 2nd season, Glover said that he never had any intentions to harm Carole Baskin and that he had planned on decapitating Exotic. He reappeared in headlines again in 2021 when he was arrested in Beaufort County, South Carolina for his 2nd drunk driving charge in 14 months. Glover's first DUI charge came after he was busted for sitting behind the wheel of a car while drunk outside of an Oklahoma strip club. His 2nd arrest occurred during a traffic stop after an officer pulled him over due to a defect on his vehicle. He was released on a $10,000 bond and has managed to avoid any newsworthy run-ins with the law since then, indicating that he's perhaps focused on trying to live a more ordinary lifestyle. Number 33. Corey Struve-Talbott. In January 2023, 37-year-old mum influencer Corey Struve-Talbott was arrested while celebrating her birthday in Monterey County, California for public intoxication, resisting arrest, and other crimes. Deputies nabbed the popular influencer, who boasts a following of more than 6 million subscribers, on her Travancore channel while responding to a reported drunken argument in Pebble Beach. According to police, Struve-Talbott had been drinking at an upscale hotel called The Lodge. When security tried to escort her to her room because she was heavily intoxicated, she resisted, prompting the security guards to call law enforcement. But she wasn't any more cooperative when sheriff's deputies tried to arrest her for trespassing. Struve-Talbott reportedly kicked at officers while being taken into custody and kicked the windows of the cruiser that she was placed into. In addition to the public intoxication, trespassing, and resisting arrest charges, the popular vlogger was charged with battery on a peace officer. A source, who was supposedly familiar with the incident, offered a much different version of events to TMZ, claiming that deputies had thrown Struve-Talbott onto the ground while she was handcuffed, and without having her Miranda rights read to her. The source also said that Struve-Talbott denied committing any misconduct against the cops and had retained an attorney to represent her in the case. Struve-Talbott did not publicly comment on the situation in the immediate aftermath of her arrest, and the outcome of the case is unclear. Number 32. Mariah the Scientist. In late March of 2024, 26-year-old hip-hop artist Mariah the Scientist was accused of attacking a woman inside an Atlanta nightclub during a physical altercation. The incident occurred at the Cavo Kitchen and Cocktail Lounge in the city's Buckhead residential district. According to police, the alleged victim accused the musician, whose real name is Mariah Buckles, of ripping her wig off and dragging her across the room for no reason. After leaving the club, the woman dialed 911 and Buckles was arrested on suspicion of battery and simple battery. Buckles offered a slightly different story, claiming that the victim had thrown a drink at her and that the victim's friend had tried to punch her and missed, causing the three women to break a table while falling to the floor. Contrary to the allegations levied against her, Buckles denied hitting or throwing anything at the victim. The singer was released from the Fulton County Jail later that day after posting a $5,000 bond, giving her plenty of time to make it to her final performance of a 45-stop concert tour. In the meantime, she was ordered to have no contact with the victim and to stay away from the Cavo Kitchen and Cocktail Lounge. The judge also ordered Buckles to attend anger management classes and refrain from consuming drugs or alcohol until her case was resolved. Number 31. Terrell Suggs. In March of 2024, former Baltimore Ravens star Terrell Suggs was accused of brandishing a gun during an argument with another driver at a Starbucks drive-thru in Scottsdale, Arizona. The 42-year-old struck the vehicle behind him with his Range Rover after he drove past the speaker and backed up in an attempt to place his order. Both men exited their vehicles and argued briefly before getting back in their cars and continuing with their orders. Before pulling away, however, Suggs flipped the middle finger at the other man and the bickering resumed, despite no damage being done to their vehicles. Suggs allegedly threatened to kill the man and stuck a pistol out the driver's side window. He did not point the weapon directly at the man, who nevertheless felt threatened and contacted law enforcement with Suggs' license plate number. The altercation had been captured on the victim's dashcam, and police arrested Suggs a few weeks later during a traffic stop. In a statement, the former pro athlete claimed that he pulled a gun because he feared that the alleged victim would follow him home or harm his family. He was charged with felony disorderly conduct involving a weapon and misdemeanor intimidation, and was indicted on the charges about a month after his arrest. The judge ordered the matter to go to trial, but updates have been scarce since May of 2024, leaving the current status of the case unclear. Number 30. Shelley Malil. Indian-American former actor Shelley Malil got his big break in the hit movie The 40-Year-Old Virgin in 2005, but his seemingly promising career was abruptly cut short just 3 years later in August 2008 when he was accused of trying to kill his ex-girlfriend, 23-year-old Kendra Beebe, in San Marcos, California. According to law enforcement, Malil showed up at Beebe's home, stabbed her, and tried strangling her to death. She survived after losing around half her blood and suffering severe injuries, including a major cut to the chin and 2 collapsed lungs. Malil was arrested in Oceanside the next day while disembarking a train. In September 2010, he was convicted of attempted murder and assault with a deadly weapon. He was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 12 years. Malil was paroled 4 years early, in September 2018, despite the victim's opposition to his release. The state governor also urged the parole board not to release Malil, but the board voted to free him. During the hearing, Malil vowed that he had changed his ways by using his time in prison to attend Alcoholics Anonymous and take self-help courses. He's managed to avoid landing at the center of any major news scandals since his release, indicating that he may be keeping his promise to stay on the straight and narrow. Number 29. Calum McSwiggan. In June of 2016, 26-year-old British YouTuber and gay rights activist Calum McSwiggan was accused of falsely claiming to be the victim of a hate crime. In an Instagram post, he claimed that 3 men had beaten him during the early morning hours outside of a gay nightclub, leaving him with several broken teeth and a head wound requiring 6 stitches. McSwiggan accused law enforcement of failing to help him and treated him like a second-class citizen, adding that he never felt so terrified to be a gay man in the public eye. But the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office claimed that there was no evidence of McSwiggan suffering any actual injuries. The agency said it was unable to substantiate his account of events, but that he had been taken into custody after he was caught vandalizing the car of a man he had gotten into a fight with. He appeared to be injury-free in a booking photo shared by the sheriff's office. According to court documents, McSwiggan was taken to the hospital after he was seen hitting himself in the face with a payphone receiver while in custody. He was charged with misdemeanor false report of a criminal offense. In November 2016, McSwiggan pleaded guilty to vandalism and the false reporting charge was dropped. He was sentenced to 3 years of probation in order to pay $7,000 in restitution. Number 28. Antonella Barba. During the fall of 2018, former American Idol contestant Antonella Barba was busted with a shoebox full of fentanyl in Norfolk, Virginia. The discovery was made during a K9 search of a vehicle she had rented earlier that day after landing at Washington Dulles Airport on a flight from Los Angeles. Following the bust, Barba was charged in U.S. federal court with distribution and possession with intent to distribute cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, and other illicit drugs. She was also charged with conspiracy for her participation in what prosecutors described as a large drug ring. Barba, who was 32 at the time and had starred in season 6 of the talent show 12 years earlier, was accused of delivering over 800 grams of fentanyl to a co-conspirator in Norfolk, Virginia. According to the authorities, she acted under the direction of Justin Michael Isaac, who also faced federal charges, alongside a third defendant, Raul Christopher Stennett. The operation reportedly ran from sometime in 2017 until October 2018. In July of 2019, Barba pleaded guilty to possession with the intent to distribute 400 grams or more of fentanyl. After originally facing a mandatory minimum 10-year term, she was sentenced to 45 months in federal prison and was released in October 2021. Aside from some minor issues with her probation officer, she has fully complied with the terms of her release, which include regular drug tests and monthly supervision reports. Barba has also paid her restitution and court fees in full and is living in New Jersey, where she's steadily employed by 2 companies. Assuming she remains compliant, her probation will end in 2026. Number 27. Victoria Larson. Queen Victoria Larson starred as a cast villain on season 25 of The Bachelor, which aired in 2021. Her past unexpectedly crept up on her that same year when news sources revealed that she had been arrested for stealing $250 worth of goods from a Publix supermarket in Tallahassee, Florida. In July of 2012, Larson, who was 20 years old at the time, was stopped by a security guard after she was seen stuffing at least 25 items into a reusable shopping bag, including several cosmetic products. The theft was also captured on surveillance footage, which showed Larson concealing the bag in the baby seat of a shopping cart. According to court documents, Larson also placed a handful of items into the main section of her cart and paid for them at the self-checkout. But she did not pay for the more than 24 things that she had hidden in her bag and was detained by security when she tried leaving the store. Unaware that her actions had been captured on video, Larson initially denied stealing anything. When questioned by a responding police officer, she was booked into the Lien County Jail on suspicion of petty theft and was released from custody 2 days later after posting a $1,000 bond. In August of 2012, roughly a month after her arrest, Larson pleaded no contest to the charges and was sentenced to 6 months of probation. During Q&A session with her fans on Instagram in 2022, Larson described her participation on The Bachelor as the worst experience of her life, but she made it clear that she wasn't looking for sympathy, stating, "There are way more significant issues in the world and mine are minuscule in comparison." Number 26. Hector David Rivera. Until recently, American actor Hector David Rivera, who goes by the stage name Hector David Jr., was best known for playing the Green Ranger in the Power Rangers franchise. But the 35-year-old made headlines for far less flattering reasons during the summer of 2024 when video surfaced of him shoving an elderly man who was using a walker to the ground in an Idaho parking lot. In the footage, Rivera could be seen approaching the victim and pushing him during a dispute over a parking issue. The victim was reportedly upset with Rivera for parking his truck in a handicapped spot. After knocking the senior citizen to the ground, Rivera got into his car and drove off. A warrant was issued for Rivera's arrest and police appealed to the public for information regarding his whereabouts after they were unable to find him on their own. Members of the public were quick to identify the famous actor as the suspect in the video. Rivera pleaded guilty to misdemeanor battery in early 2025 and was initially sentenced to 180 days in jail with 135 days suspended, which meant that he's only required to serve 45 days behind bars as long as he avoids any further legal trouble. Rivera was also sentenced to 2 years of probation in order to perform 100 hours of community service. Number 25. Theobald Theo Lengyel. 61-year-old Alex Kamakaokalani Herman vanished in Santa Cruz, California on December 3rd, 2023. Relatives reported her missing 9 days later after she failed to show up at a family gathering in Hawaii, and police soon found her car outside her boyfriend's home in El Cerrito. Herman's boyfriend, 54-year-old rock musician Theo Lengyel, was reportedly uncooperative with the investigation from the beginning, instantly making him a person of interest in the case. He was charged with first-degree murder in early January 2024, following the discovery of Herman's remains in a wooded area within Tilden Regional Park in Berkeley, roughly 4 miles outside El Cerrito. During Lengyel's trial later that year, prosecutors played an agonizing phone recording of Herman gasping for air and begging for life while Lengyel strangled her to death. It's unclear whether Herman recorded the sound clip on purpose or unintentionally, but it helped to secure a first-degree murder conviction against Lengyel, who was found guilty in September 2024. In the audio recording, Lengyel could be heard getting angry with Herman because she had to work the next morning and didn't want to go out that night to play pool. Lengyel threatened to mash Herman's brain, and the fight soon escalated into physical violence. Following Lengyel's guilty verdict, he was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Number 24. Shannon Richardson. In May of 2013, President Barack Obama and then New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg received letters containing small amounts of a toxic substance called ricin. A third ricin-filled envelope was sent to Mark Glaze, the director of the non-profit Mayors Against Illegal Guns, found naturally in castor beans. Ricin is a highly toxic compound that can kill a person in extremely small amounts. It causes internal bleeding and organ failure, followed by a fatal collapse of the circulatory system. Thankfully, the toxin's presence was detected in the letters in time to prevent anyone from being poisoned. The envelopes, which were postmarked in Shreveport, Louisiana, also contained threatening letters that appeared to be written by a pro-gun advocate who believed that the federal government was trying to take people's firearms away. Each letter contained a warning to the effect of, "What's in this letter is nothing compared to what I've got planned for you." As federal authorities worked to trace the letter's origins, a small-time actress named Shannon Richardson contacted the feds and claimed that her estranged husband, Nathan, was responsible for the toxic correspondence. The 36-year-old mother of 5, who's best known for her roles on The Walking Dead and The Vampire Diaries, told investigators that she found a post-it note with the victims' addresses written on it in her husband's handwriting. Federal agents confronted Nathan, who denied any involvement and suggested that Shannon was the true culprit, but the situation didn't get any better for him when the agents looked inside the trunk of his car and found a handful of castor beans. During a polygraph exam the next day, Shannon admitted to doing things that would make Nathan get caught, like putting the beans in his truck, but she claimed that she did these things because she truly believed he was guilty. By then, the authorities were already doubting her narrative. Shannon's story fell apart entirely when they discovered that the letters contained labels that were printed at a time when Nathan was definitely at work. Nathan's co-workers confirmed that he was there during the time in question, and Shannon was charged with mailing a threatening communication to the president. She tried to convince the investigators that Nathan had forced her to mail the letters for him, but they were confident enough that they had the right suspect to move forward with the case against her. Several months after her arrest, Shannon took a plea deal and admitted to 1 count of possession of a toxin for use as a weapon. The charge carries a maximum sentence of life in prison, but she took the deal based on the agreement that she would serve no more than 18 years. Number 23. Jason Hoganson. 53-year-old British former actor Jason Hoganson laid his claim to fame as one of the leading characters in the 1987 film Empire State, but his drug addiction interfered with his career, pulling him away from the spotlight and landing him in the desperate and dismal underbelly of Newcastle. Hoganson turned to nefarious activity to support his habit and went from being a fresh-faced, up-and-coming star to a ragged and heavily tattooed career criminal who split his time between jail and the streets. In September 2024, he was released from prison after serving half of an 18-month sentence for assaulting his ex-partner, Rachel Usher. The very next day, Hoganson was arrested for assaulting Usher again. According to police, Hoganson went to Usher's flat in Newcastle and slapped her across the face. Usher was uninjured, but the experience was painful and traumatic. She and Hoganson had dated for 6 years, and she later told investigators that Hoganson used to hit her all the time. Following the most recent incident, Hoganson was charged with assault and 2 counts of violating a restraining order. He maintained his innocence in court, claiming that he had gone to Usher's building to retrieve his belongings from one of her neighbors. But the neighbor was not present at the hearing to corroborate the story, and Hoganson was dragged out of the courtroom after erupting into a fit of rage and screaming obscenities. Hoganson's defense attorney blamed his behavior on his deteriorating mental health, but the judge found him guilty on all 3 counts. He's currently awaiting sentencing, which is scheduled for February 25th, 2025. Number 22. Nathalie Fay. In August of 2024, 43-year-old Canadian-American actress Nathalie Tourdayen, better known as Nathalie Fay, was charged with domestic battery in Miami for punching her boyfriend in the face during an argument. According to an arrest affidavit, Fay's boyfriend, known only as Brady, told police that the argument began when he picked Fay up to attend a Miami Dolphins football game. Fay, who is best known for starring in The Hangover and Blonde and Blonder, was reportedly acting paranoid about Brady's whereabouts earlier that day and believed he was lying to her based on his phone location information. She was accused of slugging Brady in an unprovoked fashion when he looked at a map location on her phone that she was trying to show him. Brady told law enforcement that he tried walking away from the situation, but that Fay had exited the car and grabbed him by the face. Fay admitted to punching Brady, claiming that she did so out of fear because Brady was speaking to her in a bad way. She was charged with domestic battery, but the case was ultimately dropped. Number 21. John Wayne Sace. In October 2024, 37-year-old former actor John Wayne Sace was arrested on suspicion of murder at a motel in the Philippine city of Pasig. He was accused of fatally shooting his 43-year-old friend multiple times for reasons that have yet to be revealed. Several hours after the shooting, Sace made a cryptic Facebook post accusing an unnamed individual of selling drugs and ruining lives. According to the most recent available updates on the case, Sace was in police custody while detectives conducted a paraffin test to detect whether there was any gunpowder residue on his hands. Sace had been injured in a previous shooting 8 years earlier, in 2016, and was reportedly on a police watch list for his suspected illegal drug use. The case appears to be ongoing. Number 20. Ronald Radke. American rock band Falling in Reverse was all set to kick off their highly anticipated British tour in December 2024 when a sudden snag forced them to postpone their scheduled performances. The UK government denied lead singer Ronnie Radke's visa due to his criminal history and prior prison sentence, giving the band no choice but to put their sold-out shows on hold while they tried to sort out the issue. In a statement, the band wrote that the UK is currently denying visas to people who have previously served more than a year in prison. Radke spent time behind bars in 2008, following his involvement in a fight that left a Nevada man dead 2 years earlier. While he was not directly involved in the murder, he pleaded guilty to battery with substantial bodily harm and was sentenced to 5 years of probation. He violated his probation and ended up serving 2.5 years in prison. Since then, Radke has strived to re-establish a respectable reputation and image, but he has repeatedly run into obstacles in his efforts to accomplish this goal. The band said that they are currently working to obtain a visa for Radke despite the unexpected roadblock in hopes of completing their planned tour. Number 19. Nick Pasqual. In May of 2024, How I Met Your Mother actor Nick Pasqual was arrested on an outstanding attempted murder charge while attempting to pass through a border checkpoint in Sierra Blanca, Texas. The 34-year-old is accused of breaking into his estranged former girlfriend's home in Los Angeles at 4:30 in the morning and stabbing her repeatedly with a knife. The victim, who had recently filed for a restraining order against Pasqual, was hospitalized with severe injuries sustained during the attack. In addition to the attempted murder charge, Pasqual was charged with 1 count each of first-degree residential burglary with person present and injuring a spouse, cohabitant, fiancé, boyfriend, girlfriend, or child's parent. Additionally, the defendant is accused of inflicting great bodily injury under circumstances of domestic violence. Pasqual was extradited from Texas to California the month following his arrest and remains in custody amid the ongoing case. Number 18. Amy Locane. Before she became a convicted criminal, American actress Amy Locane was best known for her role on the primetime soap opera Melrose Place. But her career was cut short in July of 2010 when she killed a fellow motorist while driving drunk in Montgomery, New Jersey. Locane was going 53 miles per hour in a 35-mile-per-hour zone when she rammed into a car occupied by a couple in their 60s, Fred and Helen Seaman, who were turning into their driveway at the time of the crash. Helen died in the crash, and Locane was arrested after her blood alcohol content tested at nearly 3 times the legal limit. She was charged with aggravated manslaughter and assault by automobile, and in November 2012, a jury found her guilty of vehicular homicide and assault by auto. Locane was initially sentenced to 3 years in prison, which falls woefully short of the 5-year minimum that typically comes with the charge. The judge, Robert B. Reed, based his decision to impose a light punishment based on mitigating factors, including the best interests of Locane's children. Locane was paroled in mid-2015, but she found herself back in court the following year after an appeals court ruled that Reed had failed to adequately justify the lenient 3-year sentence. But instead of imposing a harsher punishment, Reed ruled that Locane should serve 6 more months while sparing her from having to do so based on his belief that she was not a threat to society. In early 2019, Locane was resentenced to 5 years in prison. She remained free on bail while appealing her case and fought against a resentencing, arguing that doing so would violate double jeopardy laws. The case continued to languish in the court system until September of 2020, when Locane was resentenced to 8 years in prison. She served 4 more years behind bars and was released in December of 2024. Number 17. Cameron Dallas. When social media star Cameron Dallas was arrested for punching a man in the face at an Aspen, Colorado hotel on a Saturday night in late 2018, he claimed that he had landed in a situation where he had needed to protect himself. The 24-year-old, who has around 5 million YouTube subscribers and 27 million Instagram followers, was taken into custody after breaking the victim's nose during the early morning hours. Officers arrived at the scene just before 5 a.m. and found the victim with bleeding facial injuries. The victim told the cops he had been assaulted, and Dallas was arrested on suspicion of felony second-degree assault with intent to cause bodily injury. He pleaded guilty to a reduced disorderly conduct charge and was sentenced to 6 months of unsupervised probation. Dallas may have avoided severe legal consequences, but his life continued to go downhill due to his struggles with addiction. After realizing that he was nearing rock bottom, he checked into rehab, and while his first stint in treatment wasn't as successful as he had hoped, he continued trying. In 2022, Dallas reached his 3rd anniversary of sobriety, which he credits with helping him to reinvent himself and save his career. Number 16. Gabriel Olds. In August 2024, 52-year-old actor Gabriel Olds was arrested in Los Angeles on 7 counts of felony assault. According to law enforcement, the assaults occurred against at least 3 victims over a decade-long period, and authorities believe there may be more victims who have yet to come forward. Olds fell under suspicion in January 2023 after a 41-year-old woman accused him of forcing himself on her at her home in LA. In her request for a restraining order, she claimed that Olds had taken photos during a non-consensual encounter. She also accused Olds of trying to strangle her during intercourse in a separate incident that occurred roughly 2 weeks later. In a court filing, the woman said she blacked out and that Olds slapped her awake. When she came to, Olds was allegedly trying to make her do things she didn't want to do, and he refused to stop until she vomited on him. Throughout the course of the investigation, detectives discovered 2 more women who were reportedly attacked in a similar fashion on various occasions, with the earliest known assaults dating back to 2013. There were noticeable commonalities between the cases, which began as dating encounters that took violent turns. In addition to the 3 victims of the more violent assaults, 2 women have accused Olds of violating them in a slightly less aggressive fashion. LAPD Detective Brent Hopkins, who investigated the case, told the Los Angeles Times that the victims told strikingly similar stories about how Olds was charming at first but then became violent. Hopkins said that some of the victims suffered silently for years before they were finally able to speak up. Olds remains in custody amid the ongoing case, and authorities have urged any other victims to come forward. Number 15. Mary Delgado. Early one morning in December of 2008, The Bachelor Season 6 winner Mary Delgado was arrested at a bar in Del Rio, Texas, for being drunk and unruly. According to reports, the 41-year-old refused to leave the establishment, prompting the manager to call law enforcement. Valverde County Sheriff's deputies took Delgado into custody at around 2:30 a.m. on misdemeanor charges of public intoxication, resisting arrest, and disorderly conduct. Even after being placed into the back of a cop car, she reportedly kicked around inside the vehicle while being driven to booking. Delgado was released without bond in anticipation of her next court date. But this wasn't her first time running into legal problems for out-of-control behavior. About a year earlier, in November 2007, Delgado was arrested in Pinellas County, Florida, for assaulting her fiancé, Bachelor Byron Velvick, during a late-night argument that turned physical. According to police, Delgado struck Velvick in the face. Velvick turned down medical treatment for a busted lip, and Delgado was released from jail about 14 hours later after being booked into custody on suspicion of misdemeanor battery. Delgado landed in hot water with the law for a 3rd time in August of 2010, when she was arrested in Tampa, Florida on suspicion of driving under the influence after refusing a blood alcohol test during a traffic stop. By that point, Delgado and Velvick had been broken up for about a year. Delgado was booked into custody on suspicion of DUI and released on a $500 bond a short while later. The outcomes of her cases are unclear. Number 14. Valerie Fairman. Valerie Lynn Fairman became a reality TV star when she was featured on the MTV series Teen Mom in 2010, but she led a troubled life, and in December 2016, she was found dead from an accidental drug overdose at the age of 23. Fairman's death came on the heels of a failed rehab stint and legal problems, including arrests for prostitution, beating up her adoptive mother, and other crimes. Just days before her death, Fairman was arrested in Parksburg Borough, Pennsylvania, on suspicion of resisting arrest and providing false identification to law enforcement. During a traffic stop, she provided police with a false name and attempted to flee on foot when they questioned her truthfulness. Fairman was discovered dead the following week at the Coatesville, Pennsylvania home of her friend, who found the young woman unresponsive after forcing their way into the bathroom. Her death left many people deeply saddened, including a relative who urged drug dealers to stop peddling the deadly dope that claimed an untold amount of lives throughout America's opioid epidemic. Number 13. Amber Portwood. Just days before Christmas in December 2011, 21-year-old teen mom star Amber Portwood was arrested and jailed in Madison County, Indiana for violating her probation from a previous case. Her brother told E! News that Portwood's arrest came after she missed a probation hearing, prompting the authorities to visit her at her home. Portwood had supposedly missed the court proceeding under the orders of her doctor, who told her to rest after having her gallbladder removed. But it's unclear whether she tried to reschedule the hearing or informed her probation officer ahead of time that she couldn't make it to the one that she missed. While searching the young woman's purse during the home visit, probation found some prescription pills that Portwood was unable to prove legal ownership of, and she was taken into custody for what would most likely amount to her second Christmas in jail. In addition to the probation violation charge, Portwood was charged with drug possession. She was released from custody in February 2012 after agreeing to complete a court-mandated drug rehabilitation program. But her freedom was short-lived, and she was back behind bars just a month later after failing to take a required drug test. More than 13 years later, Portwood continues to make news headlines for her controversial behavior. In early 2025, she admitted to faking a pregnancy scare to get out of filming the reality series Teen Mum: The Next Chapter. She also appears to possibly be struggling with mental health issues as she continues to navigate life's difficulties on national television. Number 12. Nicky Vargas. In April of 2018, 28-year-old Bad Girls Club star Nicky Vargas was accused of performing an intimate act on her boyfriend Colton Vogel in the parking lot of a Florida apartment complex while topless. Brevard County deputies arrested her after the risque exchange was seen happening just feet from a public road in Cape Canaveral. The New Jersey resident was wearing nothing but a small pair of black shorts as she was handcuffed and escorted to a police cruiser. In addition to the lewd display, Vargas and Vogel were accused of attacking a witness who was put off by their behavior and told them to move along. According to an arrest report, Vargas ripped the victim's shirt off and punched him in the chest and the back of the head. She was also accused of trying to run from the police prior to her arrest. Vargas and Vogel were charged with various crimes, including battery and unnatural and lascivious acts in public. Number 11. John Bonavia. In September of 2015, millionaire matchmaker, contestant and financial advisor John Bonavia was accused of brutally assaulting a woman inside his Los Angeles home. A neighbor had called 911 after overhearing a struggle from Bonavia's residence, and officers arrived to find a severely beaten woman who was both bleeding and bruised. Due to the severity of the victim's injuries, Bonavia was initially charged with attempted murder. In 2016, he pleaded no contest to a reduced felony domestic violence charge and was sentenced to 5 years in prison, but this wasn't his first time being accused of violence toward a female. In May of 2014, another woman had accused Bonavia of punching, choking, and biting her. She also claimed that Bonavia had ripped her shorts and tried to strangle her with both hands, while repeatedly saying that he was going to kill her, causing her to believe that she was going to die. As of 2023, Bonavia was out of prison and pursuing a career as an entrepreneur who owns a business development group. Number 10. Richard Corey Harrison. In September 2023, 40-year-old Richard Corey Harrison of the reality TV show Pawn Stars was arrested in Las Vegas on suspicion of driving under the influence. An officer enacted a traffic stop after seeing his pickup truck veer in between lanes on the road, leading to the suspicion that he was intoxicated. Harrison was slow to pull over, but eventually cooperated after the officer commanded him to stop using a loudspeaker. He readily handed over his driver's license despite his initial reluctance to comply with the traffic stop, and he even had an explanation prepared when the officer questioned why he was failing to maintain his lane. Harrison claimed that his truck had a tendency to pull to the right, but the cops suspected that mechanical issues weren't to blame, especially after noticing several indicators that Harrison had been drinking. His eyes were bloodshot and watery. He had a 1,000-yard stare, and he smelled of alcohol. The odor followed him when he exited his truck at the officer's request, and he invoked his right to an attorney when the cop asked him if he was willing to submit to a breathalyzer or blood test. Harrison offered an alternative explanation to the Las Vegas Review-Journal, claiming that he sucks at playing Simon Says. He said that he was naturally nervous about getting pulled over and that it caused him to struggle to maintain his balance, adding that the test is meant for you to fail, no matter what. Number 9. Skrilla the Doll. 19-year-old social media influencer Isabella Caterina Pirelli, better known as Skrilla the Doll, was arrested in May of 2023 during a traffic stop in Broward County, Florida, when she yelled at a sheriff's deputy for questioning whether her friend, who was driving, had his medical marijuana card with him. The deputy noticed an odor of marijuana during the stop, prompting him to investigate the legality of any THC products the car's occupants might have in their possession, and Pirelli insisted that her friend didn't need to have his medical marijuana card with him. While running a background check, the deputy saw the driver throw a bag into the trunk of his car. The two suspects were asked to exit the vehicle, but they both refused until another deputy came along and attempted to smash the driver's side window. While the threat of having the window shattered certainly got Pirelli and her friend to exit the car, they didn't exactly become compliant. Pirelli actively resisted arrest and punched one of the deputies in the face when he tried to handcuff her. She was charged with refusing to obey a lawful order and battery on a police officer, and she landed back in custody 10 months later for violating the conditions of her bond. Records show that she's currently free under community supervision. Number 8. Benjamin Glaze. In October 2024, former American Idol contestant Benjamin Glaze was arrested in Tulsa, Oklahoma, for the suspected possession of illicit material featuring underage individuals, also known as CSAM. The 26-year-old fell under suspicion after law enforcement received a tip about his alleged crimes. While searching his residence, police found a smartphone containing more than 700 illegal images and videos. Following a months-long investigation, Glaze was charged with aggravated possession of CSAM. He was booked into the Tulsa County Jail after his arrest, but no longer appears to be in custody, indicating that he's likely free on bond while the case works its way through the court system. Number 7. Tom Welling. Former Smallville actor Tom Welling is facing a DUI charge following his arrest in January 2025 outside an Arby's restaurant in Eureka, California. The 47-year-old was taken into custody shortly after midnight on suspicion of misdemeanor driving under the influence with a blood alcohol at or above 0.08. A booking sheet described Welling as having clear speech despite his allegedly inebriated state, and he was freed without bail a few hours later. He is currently awaiting his arraignment, which is scheduled for March 11th, 2025, and has yet to publicly comment on the matter. Welling was spotted for the first time since his arrest in late February at MegaCon, where he participated in a Superman panel called The Many Faces of Superman, a tribute to the Man of Steel. Number 6. Skai Jackson. During the summer of 2024, former Disney actress Skai Jackson was arrested on a misdemeanor battery charge following a fight with her boyfriend at Universal Studios Hollywood in California. The 22-year-old former Jessie and Bunked star was stopped by security after she was seen shoving her beau more than once at the park. Security guards detained the couple until police arrived, and both Jackson and her boyfriend denied that the fight got physical when officers questioned them about what had happened. Jackson reportedly claimed that she and her partner were expecting a baby and that things were honky-dory between them, but police discovered otherwise when they looked at the park's surveillance footage. Based on the video and other findings, officers identified Jackson as the primary aggressor in the altercation and arrested her for misdemeanor spousal battery. While the outcome of Jackson's legal case is unclear, she and her partner became the proud parents of a baby boy in late January of 2025. Number 5. Chozen Terrell-Hannah. In early 2022, the FBI arrested 22-year-old TikTok star Chozen Terrell-Hannah in connection with a string of armed robberies and burglaries at retail and convenience stores across the Metro Detroit region. The crimes, which occurred over a 3-month period in 2021, went unsolved until investigators identified Terrell-Hannah as the suspect, based on a distinctive pair of shoes he was seen wearing in some of his TikTok videos. According to authorities, Terrell-Hannah's footwear matched the shoes that the culprit was seen wearing in surveillance footage of the crimes. He also had similarly colored pink hair that the serial robber sported in the security videos. Oddly, some witnesses had described the burglar as a white man, and Terrell-Hannah is African American. Despite this, authorities were confident they had their culprit. An FBI task force officer wrote that based on the circumstances, including the suspect's black attire and light complexion, it was possible that victims had mistakenly identified him as white. Terrell-Hannah was charged with numerous crimes, including robbery affecting interstate commerce and possessing a firearm during a violent crime. He reportedly admitted to committing 4 armed robberies when he spoke with investigators, but updates have not been forthcoming in the years since his arrest, leaving the current status of the case unclear. Number 4. Jennifer Lien. Former actress Jennifer Ann Lien appeared in numerous commercials, TV shows, and movies throughout the 1990s, including most famously Star Trek Voyager and American History X. In September 2015, Rowan County, Tennessee deputies picked her up on an outstanding warrant at her Harriman home. Lien was wanted on an indecent exposure charge for allegedly revealing herself to young onlookers while throwing a tantrum in her yard. Law enforcement arrived to find the front door open and went inside, where they found her unclothed beneath a blanket on her sofa. She refused to get dressed and told the deputies to leave her alone. giving them no choice but to call a female cop over to the house to put clothing on her and help take her into custody. Additionally, Lien was accused of threatening to have the responding deputy shot and killed. Several months earlier, in April of 2015, Lien had been arrested for evading arrest, resisting arrest, reckless endangerment, and aggravated assault. The month before that, she was arrested twice within 2 weeks for driving on a revoked license. Her driving privileges had been taken away due to a previous DUI charge, and she was pulled over after she was seen driving around with no tags on her vehicle. The judge overseeing Lien's case ordered her to undergo a psychiatric evaluation due to concerns surrounding her mental health. Based on the results, Lien was required to undergo mental health treatment and pay restitution. She cooperated with these requirements and the charges against her were ultimately dropped. Number 3. Martell Holt. In early 2024, reality TV star Martell Holt was arrested in Alabama on suspicion of misdemeanor domestic violence. According to records, the Love and Marriage Huntsville alum was nabbed in Madison County for sending harassing correspondence. Authorities initially released very few details regarding the circumstances of the case, but it was later revealed that he had targeted his ex-wife and co-star Melody Shari, whom he was entangled in a contentious child custody dispute with at the time of his arrest. Holt was accused of plotting to release explicit footage of Shari online from during their marriage. According to Shari, this was part of a plot to expose her for supposedly cheating on her ex-husband. In May of 2024, Holt was convicted of the charge and received a 30-day suspended jail sentence. The judge also sentenced him to probation, fined him $500, ordered him to undergo a psychiatric evaluation, and banned him from communicating with Shari. Despite his conviction, Holt wasn't fired from Love and Marriage, causing some viewers to question why he was still allowed to appear on the show. Not everyone on the show felt that he deserved to be convicted of the crime, and Holt also continued to maintain his innocence while appealing his case. Number 2. Matthew Gwynn. In late 2021, Married at First Sight star Matthew Gwynn was arrested in Nashville, Tennessee for breaking into his ex's home after she told him he wasn't welcome at her residence. According to reports, the incident occurred after the on and off couple were seen arguing at a party. When Gwynn told the woman that he was going to go to her home, she told him to go to his residence instead. The victim was still at the party when she received a notification from her home surveillance system about an alarm going off at her house. When she returned home the next day, she noticed signs of forced entry, including significant damage to her front door frame. Gwynn had taken his property from the home while leaving the victim's belongings untouched. The woman turned the home security footage over to police, who arrested Gwynn on suspicion of domestic vandalism. In the years since, Gwynn has become a much more private person, making it clear that he's uninterested in resuming a role in the spotlight. Number 1. Jessica Smith. In March of 2007, former Laguna Beach, the real Orange County star Jessica Smith was arrested on a felony DUI charge after causing a crash along the Santa Ana Freeway in Southern California. According to police, the 19-year-old rear-ended an Acura sedan with her Volkswagen Beetle, causing injuries to occupants of both vehicles. The California Highway Patrol blamed several factors for the crash, including Smith's level of intoxication, wet road conditions, and the unsafe speed that she was traveling at when the collision occurred. In July of that year, Smith pleaded guilty to a reduced misdemeanor DUI charge and was sentenced to 3 years of probation. The judge also fined her $1,300 and ordered her to perform 80 hours of community service. Thanks for watching. Who is your least favorite celebrity and why? Let us know in the comments section below.